I'm amazed as to how much people don't know how to breathe. My job and my role is to help people start connecting here and now to their bodies.
Things got very, very heavy, emotionally also charged. Then I had a moment of a release because you also helped me with energy movement.
You're taking that somatic experience, that somatic memory with you into your life.
That is so beautiful, it's magical, and it's literally heartwarming.
At the beginning, I will be very honest with everyone, it doesn't get easier.
Painful, heavy, and scary. Yes, but it's the most incredible and the most powerful journey you can ever go on to in your life because you are worth it. Welcome to today's episode. Today I'm in Amsterdam. I'm with Matias Stegmann. Matias Stegmann is a holistic practitioner, but I let him tell me more about it because I'm curious what that actually means. Matias, nice to be on my podcast.
Hi,
I'm
Caroline.
glad that you're here. What is a holistic practitioner? Please tell me more.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite and for the beautiful session that we just did together. By the way, thank you for saying my name the way it's supposed to be said. As a German person, I don't speak German, but that's probably how you pronounce my name. So a holistic practitioner, why I call myself that, is because I use different holistic tools, such as spinal energetics, such as breathwork and sound, to help people create space for their mind-body connection, create space for their emotions, create space for their authentic expression of who they are. And by doing that, being able to regulate their nervous system, being able to come into a place of flexibility, of safety, of balance within themselves so that they can serve life with more ease, with more joy, with more mindfulness as well, which translates in a sense of greater well-being.
Wow, you said like so many words. I'm like, oh God, I'm hooked into all of them. Nervous system. Let's start maybe with that because some people who are in the beginning, let's say, of the healing journey, particularly when it comes to mental health struggles, sometimes, let's say, traumas, they're not aware of these invisible wounds that you maybe feel and no one sees. That depression, that anxiety, that feeling of restlessness, sometimes it shows up in behavior, like I'm pleasing people. I'm trying to make everyone happy. I put everyone else on the priority list. I never make it myself there, but we struggle. We struggle physically, mentally. How does it look like when I come to you for a first session?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind, actually, well, I'm mostly identify with a lot of things that you just said as well. People pleasing, definitely. Walking away from yourself for others. Those are normal behaviors or patterns that people have because we're all human beings. We're all in this together. And when people come to me, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. We're not going to have a cognitive chat about what is happening in their lives. My job and my role is to actually help them connect back to themselves, but back to their body, to feel in their body where is that information that they're ready to process at this moment. So we're not going to go through a big timeline of their life, going moment by moment, but we're actually going to connect in this present moment to what is happening and what is playing in their system, in their nervous system. So are they more prone to be constantly alert, constantly in stress response, or are they on a freeze response? Are they completely freezing with what life brings them? Or are they in a state of past that relaxation, past that actually rest and digest parasympathetic action of the nervous system, but they went into numbness, into disassociation, into I just don't feel anything anymore, into a disconnection. My job and my role is to help people start connecting here and now to their bodies. Where are they feeling stuff, sensations, information in their bodies using breathwork. Because from the breathwork perspective, we're going to talk about that in a bit, but it's very simple and easy to see where the breath is not flowing in the body. And that usually translates into places in which we're holding stuff in our bodies, holding information, emotional information, mental patterns, family information that we don't really want to see, we don't really want to access because or we're scared, or it's too painful, or we don't know how to deal with that. And therefore, during the sessions, I will guide people to connect to those places from a very safe environment. I'm very keen to not pushing processes, but to allowing people to still be in control as to how deep they want to go during the session. And I'm here to guide them. And when they connect to those places in the body and information starts arising, that's when our system starts being able to bring into consciousness whatever that information was.
Wow.
And we're going to delve deeper into that as to how that process goes.
Yeah, because I'm thinking immediately, but before we dive in, I'm curious, how did you get into this work? How did you find this? It's not something that's just for everyone familiar and known. So how did you find your place in this profession?
This type of work. Well, it was it was a bit random, actually. I was born in Argentina. When I was about 17 years old, I went to study chemical engineering. Nothing of the sort. My whole family, they're all engineers. So I was like, I'm going to be an engineer. Went into engineering school. And at the same time, I realized that I could sing. So I started taking singing lessons. And then I discovered that that was my passion. So I sat my parents down and I said, I don't want to be an engineer. I want to be a singer. And they were like, okay, we support you in it. So I started my career as a singer. I went into musicals, performed for about 17 years in musicals. And then I moved to the Netherlands, and I didn't want to be on stage anymore at that time. I had my run on stage and I wanted something new. And then I started teaching singing. And then I started noticing that people were coming to my lessons, not just to learn how to sing, but to find a space in which they could open up their expression, connect to their emotions, being able to find something that would relax them. And now, after having studied breathwork, spinal energetics, sound healing, it's so interesting to put singing also into that perspective, into how using your voice also is actually helping you regulate your nervous system, actually getting you out of your mind, into your body, into a place of safety within yourself, and into a place where you can actually find way more joy, relaxation, rest, so that your system can come in balance.
How is the voice helping me to regulate my nervous system?
So a couple of things that I've noticed is, first of all, the vibration of your voice also triggers and there's a word in Dutch, prikkels, stimulates. Stimulates the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve, I believe, is the 12th cranial nerve and is related to our fight or flight or rest and digest action. You will have to check me on this because I'm not a scientist, but this is what I've learned and what I've read. And then I understand how, by the vibration of our voice, we start stimulating that vagus nerve to actually stimulate that sense of rest and digest action of our nervous system. The second thing that I believe singing helps with regulation is connected more to breath work. The basis of singing is an effective use of the breath. And when we're singing, we're basically extending our out breath, our exhalation. Why? Because we're stopping at the level of the vocal folds. We're stopping that breath. Vocal folds begin to vibrate. So when we're singing, we're inhaling in, let's say, 3 counts, 1, 2, 3, and exhaling probably in 6, 7, 8, or 9 counts. So we're really extending that out breath. What that does, and this is from the science of breathwork, what that does is actually help the system, the nervous system, switch into a parasympathetic action.
So I can calm down.
Yes.
And relax.
Correct. And therefore, cortisol, adrenaline start to reduce. You start producing the happy hormones. And that's why singing and the voice also helps with nervous system regulation. My entry into this type of work was through the voice, and I still use the voice in all of my sessions. But I also noticed that I wanted and I needed to learn much more about this type of work, and that's why I came into breathwork, into spinal, and into other sound therapy tools.
What exactly is, for example, breathwork? If we're now on the topic, we all know the word breathing. We understand, okay, it has something to do with me breathing. And now you said, okay, it's something about the nervous system. But how does it really work?
Yeah, so breathwork, it's a fascinating tool. At least the line of breathwork that I use comes from a modality called holotropic breathwork. This holotropic breathwork was created by a psychotherapist called Stanislav Grof. He was from Czech Republic. And what he noticed, well, back in the day, there were a lot of tests into how to access altered states of consciousness with LSD. LSD was forbidden at that time. So these psychotherapists, they started thinking, well, how can we access altered states of consciousness without drugs? And they started exploring with breath. And they came into this technique of breathing, which is not a difficult technique. The technique is not difficult. It's just very available to everyone. Only it is very powerful. And therefore, the importance of using this technique is what I said before, not pushing processes, but really taking people in a really slow journey so as to not re-traumatize the nervous system. On the contrary, we don't want that. We really want to create flexibility and safety. So it's really keen as a practitioner to accompany people at their own pace.
Means my body tells me how far I can go, how ready I am?
Correct. And you always have conscious control of what you're doing. So the moment that is getting very intense for you, you can always bring it a step down by bringing your breath into your nose. So basically with breath work, we are breathing in and out through the mouth for about 25 minutes. Obviously, we build up to that. So in the beginning of the session, we start with a very slow breath in through the nose, just really balancing the nervous system, creating that safety, that sense of grounding in yourself. Then we're going to go into an activation of the breath. We're going to start building that tempo, breathing a tiny bit faster and a tiny bit deeper until we reach those 25 minutes that we're breathing in and out through the mouth. I would love for you to also explain what you experienced, because you just experienced the breath work.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
If I may just jump in quickly ahead, because I went in and went for everyone who's on the healing journey, to actually experience it for you, but to show you how Matias's work really looks like and in action. And it was incredible. I first had I've done it a few times now. I'm going maybe to a today experience. It was very relaxing how you guided me into the breathing, into the calming down state, in the parasympathetic sort of state of relaxation of my body, my nervous system. And we have a trusting relationship, so I was very open for it. And then through sound, you activated also my, let's say, sympathetic state. So you got me into stress, simplified, like to say it like this. Yeah. So I got very overwhelming at times. Yeah. So my body was really tense. Yeah. And things got very, very heavy, emotionally also charged. And Then I had a moment of a release because you also helped me with, and we're going to dive deeper into this energy movement. And there was a lot of sound, voice, and your trusting voice, of course. And then I had a wonderful experience of gratefulness that was emotionally attached, but it was joyful. This time I experienced very much joy. Last time I did not experience joy only. It was also fear that came up, a lot of releases of sometimes negative things. But in this case, again, I can really confirm your body tells you what needs to be released today. And it allows you to go sometimes very far. Like in our first session, it was very deep, very heavy. Yeah. Today was also far, but a different level. Yeah. So my body was still maybe also processing things from the other time, and that was okay. So that was my experience, but a very much nervous system somatic experience, which I find in the healing journey, particularly when you struggle with trauma in the past or things that you might not even remember, but your nervous system does. And that's, for me, for example, the case. Yeah. That's really helpful.
And what I also want to say that I find beautiful about what you mentioned, Caroline, is that these modalities are not quick fixes. It's progressive. And, the session that you had with me last week connected you with a bit of the mud that was underlying. You left the session and a lot moved. And you even said, it took me 3 days of really coming back to myself and walking through that mud after the session. Sometimes people think that a healing journey, especially with all these modalities that are coming into the collective, which I find beautiful. It's as if something or someone is guiding us as a collective to really step into our light. But to step into our light, we have sometimes to walk through some of that darkness and some of that, and I say light as the conscious aspect and darkness as the subconscious aspect, things that we don't maybe know about ourselves. And that's why there's a lot of fear connected to that darkness. Darkness is not connected to any type of religious symbolism of it. To me, the darkness is everything that we just don't know about ourselves yet, our subconscious. And, what you mentioned is that progression in the sessions. The first session was quite intense for you. You moved through some mud. And today you move through also some mud, but achieving a state of gratefulness, of joy, of expansion as well. And that is progressively how you're balancing and how you're reaching that homeostasis of the nervous system. That is your system saying, oh, I feel space for myself. I feel space for that self-love, for that self-compassion, for that being grateful for who I am and what I carry on my day-to-day life. And what I was mentioning to you as well when we finished is that you're taking that somatic experience, that somatic memory with you into your life. So that the next time that there are triggers or stuff that gets you out of that window of tolerance of your nervous system also now has this very real, very powerful memory of how it is to feel that joy, to feel that gratefulness, to feel that safety.
Can you explain the window of tolerance for anyone who doesn't know what that means?
Yeah.
What's the window of tolerance?
Absolutely. So how I see it is we all have this range by which we feel balanced emotionally, mentally, physically in our life. When we are, getting outside of our window of tolerance means that our nervous system is getting triggered or excited up to a point in which what we're feeling physically, emotionally, or mentally, it's not in balance anymore. It's dysregulated. It's out of balance. It's costing us stress. Is also anatomically and physically producing adrenaline, cortisol, the stress hormones. It's inflaming our body. That's why we feel the pains in our physical body as well. what these modalities do, especially spinal energetics and breathwork, what they do is work with that flexibility of that window of tolerance. So we are creating, this comes from a study of Porges, of the polyvagal theory.
Mm-hmm.
What he said and what he explains is that our nervous system, when there has been trauma in our life, we were brought outside of our window of tolerance by that event or series of events. We know by now that trauma is not just, it can be one particular event, but it can also be small events in a period of time. So our nervous system at that moment is brought outside of that window of tolerance, probably into a sympathetic action. So a fight or flight, can also be a freeze. So even worse, that we just freeze because it's just way too much for us. And what happened was that at that moment, maybe we didn't have the tools to integrate that information or to process it. Maybe we didn't have the right environment, or we didn't have the right help. And therefore, that loop is still open,
Mm-hmm.
saved and stored in that sympathetic action of the nervous system. With this modality, what we're doing is we're consciously using our breath to excite the system. Why? Because, interesting enough, when we are in a sympathetic action, our heart rate starts increasing, our breath starts becoming more contained and higher in our body. We cannot control our heart rate consciously. We can control our breath consciously. And that's why we use the tool to access that state. Because we're consciously doing it. We're telling our system, I'm stressed. Although you're not stressed, you're consciously, anatomically stressing your body. So we start consciously going into that activation of the nervous system. And then we access that information, sometimes very consciously, as it happened with you. You know, our first session, there was a big emotional release. You were also seeing images. You were having some vivid experiences related to whatever that information was for you. Then we're bringing that nervous system back into the window of tolerance, back into safety, so that we can close that loop.
That's beautiful.
Yes, it's super powerful. And I mean, I hope everyone can experience this because it is really beautiful. And it's really also science-based and evidence-based that this modality and these modalities are really helping with that regulation.
That's incredible. But now when you mentioned the breath, something came up for me. I was thinking, so many people struggle, for example, with anxiety, or they go to the gym and then have a panic attack in the gym. Is that then also related because the breath is triggering or associating something in the body, or telling the nervous system, oh, we are in fight, flight, distress, something is unsafe, and therefore I have a panic attack?
Yeah, probably. So when you mentioned the gym, obviously when we're working out, we are in a sympathetic action.
Mm-hmm.
We're bringing also our nervous system into a sympathetic action. So we're stressing our physical body. We're also doing it consciously, although sometimes we're not very conscious of our own triggers. And therefore, we are stressing our bodies, but then we're accessing some information that is probably in our subconscious related to maybe trauma or traumas or experiences. And we don't know how to manage that. So we triggered something and then we stayed there. And what happens is our breath starts changing, our breathing rhythm, our pattern starts changing related to that stress.
So I haven't closed the loop. I'm basically now out of my window of tolerance in those moments.
So you can bring yourself back to regulation with your breath as well. You can use your breath as a tool to regulating. And I mean, I give this to everyone. So I'll just do it. I'll just give some, people that are watching, I'll give them a tool to actually bring yourself back into regulation. Extend your out breath. Breathe in and out through the nose, just counting 3 in, 6 to 8 out. So you literally repeat this for about 5 minutes. Your system will come back to regulation.
Oh, it's such a powerful tool.
I use this to sleep. People that have sleepless nights, For me, this works like magic. I mean, it's not magic. It is regulating your nervous system. It's coming back to a place of safety within yourself. And therefore, use your breath. I mean, from my background as a singing teacher and as a performer and a singer myself, breath was the first thing that I had to learn for my career. I'm amazed as to how much people don't know how to breathe or are fully not in touch with how they breathe or with their breath. What I see is people very much breathing only into their chest cavity, breathing way high into their bodies, having a lot of tension in their belly, into their abdominals, and not being able to fully release so that the diaphragm can create space for the air to reach the lower part of the lungs. And through breath work, you can start working on that breath capacity, on that freedom of the diaphragm, of the stomach.
What can I do at home? Let's say, is it that breathing that you just said, like through the nose? Or what's a good practice that I can do to literally expand? Is it expanding?
Yeah. Well, I love to teach, right? So whenever you ask me a question, I will go into my, teacher mode. Something that I use and that I actually use and teach everyone in their first lesson of singing.
Yeah.
We're going a bit that way now, but it's all related. It's really all related. Is to release the pelvic floor. How you release the pelvic floor is by connecting to that little muscle, the perineum muscle, which is the muscle that helps us not pee ourselves. I call it hold the pee exercise.
Very good. I like that. Yeah, that's okay.
Because everyone has access to this muscle, right? So if you just imagine, if you can close your eyes and just, if you're sitting or standing, just connect to that little muscle on the pelvic floor as if you want to hold the pee.
I got it.
And then release it. What do you notice in your lower abdomen as you hold the pee? What happens with your lower abdomen?
It almost feels like, not a belt, but it feels like tightening.
It contracts.
Yeah, it contracts.
Correct.
Yeah.
It contracts. And if you release, what happens with your lower abdominals? They release.
Release. Yeah.
Correct. So what I notice a lot in almost 99% of the students that I see is people walk with so much in their stomachs, like so much tension in their abdominals. My guess is there's a really big aesthetic bias in society that says, pull your belly in, just keep it in. Don't let your belly out.
Yeah.
That carries a lot of shame, for yourself, for how others see you. It's a whole thing. And our core, our abdominals, are also our center by which we can create safety for ourselves, protect ourselves. We engage the core, we're ready to fight. No one wants to fight with a core that is soft.
True.
Therefore, we're not aware with how much tension we walk in our core. And what happens is, very, very simple anatomically, when the core is tight, the pelvic floor is tight, is pulled in, the diaphragm is not able to drop. And what happens is then our breath is just caught in the higher part of our lungs. We cannot access the full capacity of our lungs. So this exercise, the hold the pee, basically what it does is gives you a conscious control of your lower abdominals so that you can contract and release them on demand consciously. So then what you're going to do is you're going to couple your breath to that action of the perineum muscle. How? When we breathe out, we exhale, we're contracting the muscles. We're holding the pee. Holding the pee.
Wait, I'm going to try this.
And this, for anyone who's watching, this is going to be very counterintuitive. This is very normal. You will need to practice this. You will need to practice. It's not going to happen on the first time.
So show me one more time so that everyone also can understand this.
You breathe out and what do you do? Correct? You contract. You hold the pee. And then
Oh.
you release and breathe in. So you release that perineum muscle and you breathe in. So you're breathing out, you're contracting. And when you're run out of breath, release. Awesome. So a couple of things that I see.
Yeah.
Don't release. So you're releasing here. You're releasing your body.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with the body. It just has to do with that little muscle in the pelvic floor. So what you're releasing is the perineum. Don't release the body.
All
Yeah.
right.
So your body is always aligned. So what you're releasing, look at me, one sec. So let's see if we can see it.
Yeah.
You're contracting as you're breathing out, belly goes in. The moment that you run out of breath, you release that perineum muscle and you inhale.
Oh my God, that is such a different way of breathing.
Yes.
Such a game changer in the. Oh my God.
And this, I mean, if you're a singer,
Yeah.
you know this way of breathing. There is no other way of breathing as a singer, because what you're managing is subglottal pressure at the level of the vocal folds. And this is the best way to do it. Also, it's the most natural way to do it. When you're sleeping at night, this system happens on its own.
Oh.
When you're sleeping at night, you're not holding tension on your abdominal muscles. Believe me, you're releasing them and your diaphragm is fully functional. However, the moment that you're conscious and you're ready to fight life, you're going to be engaging your core. And therefore, you're going to be breathing way too high in your system. So using this ensures that you stop bringing the breath up, but you can really use the full capacity of your lungs.
What a wonderful practice for everyone also who struggles with anxiety or panic attacks, that
Absolutely.
they can really practice this
Really.
for themselves to not have them anymore.
Yeah, correct.
That's
and
great.
it really takes practice. It doesn't happen right away. I have probably 5% of my students can actually do it right away. 95, I send them home with the exercise, and then the second lesson they have it.
Okay, but at least there's a time frame to it. How a few times practicing.
Yes,
and
I mean you can get this like really in a day. It's not, it's not that hard. However, it doesn't happen. It's like people don't have that awareness and that control over their body.
That's amazing.
It's also a great practice to start connecting with your body.
Yeah. But this is something I didn't even know of. But the breath work can bring you back to a little bit yourself.
Yeah, to regulation.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
especially extending that breath out. Extending that breath out. There's a fabulous and amazing book by James Nestor, Breath. Highly recommend it. He's done a study. He's a scientist, and he's done a study of how different ways of breathing affects different chemical and body functions. Amazing.
Incredible.
So
if breathwork has so much power, and we all carry our breath, with us, that's the most powerful tool there is. And I heard also from soldiers, special ops, that they also gave me that message and said, hey, Caroline, the only thing we have available in high stress situations, when things, don't go as planned, or when things are overwhelming, is we have our breath. So basically, they come to someone like you, and you teach them how to breathe properly and
how to breathe, and also how to use their breath to access stored information in the body that they can start integrating so that they come back into that window of tolerance.
That's incredible. What a beautiful work. But now you mentioned also two other things that I want to dive into.
Yes.
You mentioned sound,
yes.
and you mentioned energy and spinal
energetics.
Yes, spinal energetics.
Yeah.
Please tell me more about one or the other.
Yes, definitely. I combine tools. So sessions with me are always a combination of tools, and tools that really go well together are these three. Sound is always a co-facilitator. Sound, who doesn't go to music for some, stopping of that mental overthinking, right? Yeah. Who doesn't go with music and then suddenly they're in a different world, in a different dimension? And spinal energetics is an energy healing modality that was developed by Dr. Sarah Jane Perry. Dr. Sarah Jane is a chiropractor that lives in Australia, in Melbourne. That's where the headquarters of Spinal are. And Sarah basically noticed in her own practice as a chiropractor that she was helping people from a body perspective to come back into alignment, to bodily alignment. But the body, after a couple of weeks, was reverting back to old patterns. So she thought, why is this happening? Why is the body not staying in alignment? There has to be something else that informs the body to take that tension pattern again. So then she studied many different modalities and studies. I believe she's a counselor as well. Chinese medicine, the chakra system. Also, I think her work stems from network spinal, which is another different energy modality. So she really started working with the nervous system, and she developed this method and this modality to help people and to help the system, the whole system, so body, mind, emotions, spirit, connect to the information that is being held in that tension pattern on the spine. So through that connection, that mind and body connection, the nervous system and the physical body or emotional body or mental body start processing that information, starts creating space for that information to arise into the consciousness in the same way that breathwork does, so that the loop can be finally closed. So they're very complementary of each other. With spinal, basically what you're doing is you're using the innate wisdom of your system, that same innate wisdom that heals a tissue, repairs a bone. You're not consciously telling your body, oh, now, repair this tissue. Your body's just doing it. There is an innate wisdom in our system that always thrives and always heals.
I love that.
We're just not in touch with it.
No.
Or sometimes we get in the way of that natural process.
How do we get in the way?
Through what happened in our life that we didn't process.
Okay, so it blocks it?
I think it restricts it. I think, or I want to believe, that our innate wisdom is always attuned to the best possible outcome for us. However, when there's unprocessed information, it's as if something is pulling from one side and something is pulling from the other side. And therefore, the carriage is a bit out of alignment. It's not following the path as it should be in the most efficient way. And it just takes bringing that information into the consciousness to be able to realign that carriage.
So that we heal better, faster, or?
I think we just come into alignment with ourselves, and therefore we restore that flow.
Okay, so it's how it's supposed to be.
Correct. We restore that flow into where it needs to be going.
Wow.
That before it wasn't.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and Caroline, I want to believe that there's always a reason why this is the way it is at this moment. And it's because that probably is or was at that moment in time the safest option for us as human beings. We created that protective mechanism completely unconscious because we needed to create safety for ourselves at that moment.
It's all about survival.
Correct.
Right?
It's all about survival. The thing is, we're now in a different part of our lives, and therefore we have a different support and different tools to be able to go back and look into that and process it. All our body is asking for is just that, is just to give it space.
To process?
Yes.
And basically heal.
Correct.
I couldn't agree more. That's so true. But it's also interesting because a lot of times we have wrapped, and you mentioned it off record a little bit, our personality around certain things we hold on to, even though we know maybe it's not healthy or it hurts us, but we hold on to it. How do we release it and let go of this then? In a session, how would that look like with you?
What I usually do, so with Spinal Energetics, what I find also beautiful about this modality is that Dr. Sarah Jane, she's an expert in reading bodies. She really focused her life in reading the physical body and understanding through experience as well what different parts of our spine and our bodies relate to. What is the information relating to the blockage in this part or that part of the spine?
Yeah.
And that gives clients something that is also very concrete. So usually what I do after a session, I would talk with the person about what processes I've worked on that day. And processes are the different parts of the spine that hold on to this information. For example, when we started the session today for you, you were what is called a process A. Process A is related to overthinking, is related to being very much stuck in your mind, ruminating. And for you, it was on the masculine side. It was here on the right.
Mm-hmm.
It's related to the vertebrae C1 or C2. That's where the tension pattern is, and on one side of the body. And basically, and I asked you that, does this resonate with you? And you were like,
very much.
Yes, it does. So it's very much, getting caught in the head. What do I need to do next?
That's my safety net. Overthinking, and for a lot of people, that is a safety net. If I thought about it hard enough, if I know what to do, then I'm in control. It's short term, but this is really it.
Correct. So then what I would do is, I speak about this with the person, to make them also aware of what is playing in their system, see if it resonates with how they feel at this moment. And then I send a couple of questions so that they can also start, journaling about it, processing this information, also from a cognitive place. I really believe in a multimodality approach for healing. No one has the truth as to what is the best way to heal. Because I believe there is no truth about it. It's just a very individual journey by which, with every connection that you make in life, you're learning about your own process. And therefore, that connection might be with a psychologist, with a therapist. That connection might be with a personal trainer, that some information comes up when you're working out. It can also be with a holistic practitioner, with a breathwork coach, with a life coach, with an osteopath, with a physical therapist. These are all different pathways by which we start connecting and peeling out those layers so that we can reach deeper and deeper into the information that we are ready to process and integrate. And therefore, spinal and breath work support people in a way that then they can also take that information into therapy and talk about it. I mean, I do that myself. I receive spinal, I receive breath work, and then I take it to my therapist and say, this showed up in the session. I have no clue where this comes from. How can we give this words so that my conscious self can begin to also feel safe?
Yes, and understand and catch up almost. I brought my session also to my therapy session just to catch up.
Yes.
Because the body released something the mind couldn't follow and understand and try to catch up and needs to, again, come back into alignment.
Correct.
It really is beautiful. I can speak for myself. From my experience, it really brought in more safety, more... I can take up space. That's really for me. It's okay to take up space and allow, and that's that deeper sense. I cannot even, it's probably around the heart area and the chest area. There's like a sort of a knowing feeling, a feeling of, everything is okay. That doesn't mean life always goes now one way and only the way up. No, but it's the deep sense of, it's okay. I know. I always have this feeling of being grounded, deeply rooted. And I this is something I don't want to ever miss again. It's beautiful. And for someone, and maybe you can relate, someone who's a trauma survivor, who has lived in decades of unsafety, in decades of fear, feeling also, you know, very critical over yourself eventually. And that feeling of, it's a home feeling.
Yeah.
A feeling of, I'm coming home to myself. That is so beautiful. It's magical, and it's literally heartwarming.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the work that you do. That's incredible.
It's really inspiring. Your journey is super inspiring as well, Caroline. I mean, it's really beautiful to connect with you as well. And I love how open you are and how vulnerable you are to share your story as well. Because I think that is really shifting also the perspective and the paradigm of people to, you know, be able to allow themselves to reach out to different practitioners, to also go on that healing journey themselves, to dare to tap into that vulnerability, and do that personal work. That in the end, at the beginning, I will be very honest with everyone, it doesn't get easier.
It feels like, oof, I know, you're crashing. Yeah.
It feels like it's worse. But why? It's because you start getting in touch with those deeper layers of pain, of disappointment, of heartbreak, of abandonment. But there is no other way that the system can feel safe and actually, in the end, not only see that light at the end of the tunnel, but choose to then just live in that sun.
That's
just
so beautiful.
You know?
Yeah, it is.
The
exactly
image that I'm
like
getting
that.
is kind of like, okay, there is a light, I see it, but through this work, you're not only just seeing the light, you're stepping into the sun.
Yes, that is exactly how it is. And you finally can experience the sun, feel joy, and it travels through your entire body, that sense of warmth.
Yeah.
That is beautiful, and that's such an encouraging message. And that's the most incredible journey, even though it feels hard, wherever you're at right now. Painful, heavy, and scary. Yes, but it's the most incredible and the most powerful journey you can ever go on to in your life, because you are worth it. I think that's beautiful. Matias, I have a question before I let you go, because I ask everyone who's on my podcast, and please feel free to answer short or as long as possible. But if you could travel back in time and tell something your younger self, that can be your teenager yourself, that can be your child self at any age, what would you tell yourself, knowing what you know today?
So what comes up for me is, first of all, I want to say that I'm super proud of you and how you have withstand so many of the situations that you did. And I would encourage my younger self to stand up more for himself.
That's a beautiful message.
Yeah.
Really beautiful message. I have another question that is very, very spontaneous, but for you, because you've done your work, you've walked also your own path of healing. What was for you the most transformational moment?
Ooh, that's a tough one, because there were a couple of transformational moments. I think what comes up for me spontaneously now is, I think, the relationship with my dad. That was really transformational for me. I came out gay when I was 19, after being bullied for many, many years in school, in high school. I went to a all-boys Catholic school, very rugby-based. And, you know, I was emotionally abused, physically abused. I was very, very introvert at that time. I didn't know who I was. Obviously, I struggled with my sexuality, but it was a very Catholic, conservative environment. So that was not a place where you could really express this. And, you know, my dad is an extremely loving and generous person. And when I came out, it was really hard for him. I think he felt a lot of pain for me, but he couldn't express that. And he kind of like took distance from me, which for me felt as a rejection of who I am. And for many years, I carried that sense of, rejection. He doesn't love me enough. And, always trying to prove myself to him that I'm worth it and that I'm good and, I'm a hard worker. And a couple of years ago, actually, it wasn't really long ago, and I've always had a really good relationship with my dad, but still that was always there. And I didn't notice that that was the case until way later in my 30s. I suddenly looked at myself and I was like, why am I seeking so much validation? And why am I seeking so much validation from my dad? Mm-hmm. And I had a really nice moment with him that just happened when I was back in Argentina visiting. We were just the two of us, and then this conversation came up, and I was really scared to bring this up. I was really scared to say, hey, Dad, I have this feeling that, you don't approve me, or that I could never say to you, hey, Dad, I'm gay, And I did on that day. And it was incredible because he just, his eyes got teary and he said, how can you feel that? Because I'm nothing but extremely proud of who you are. And the fact if you're gay or straight to me doesn't matter. Like, I love you for who you are. And it was really transformative and really healing to just hear that from him. And also for me to be able to express, I feel this, and
how wonderful.
Yeah.
What a wonderful experience where you felt seen and heard and you could express yourself.
Yeah.
That's another thing. A lot of times we live in suppression out of shame, out of guilt, out of so many reasons, or we don't want to overbury or burden anyone with how we feel.
Yeah.
And you made that step.
Yeah.
How beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Thank you so much. Is there anything that you want to leave our listeners, viewers, with a message that you feel like, hey, that's an important one?
A bit of what I feel is that taking that first step into your own personal healing journey might feel very confronting, scary, also unknown. Where is this going to lead me? A lot of anxiety might come up. Just listen to yourself and dare to challenge yourself with kindness, with compassion for yourself, for your own path. Don't let anyone push you there. And treat yourself with that kindness that you also treat others with. And dare to take that step, because in the end, you'll feel and you'll collect all the rewards of doing that.
Wow, beautiful message. I love it. Really do. Matias, thank you so much. Makes me really emotional. It's wonderful. If you are ever in Amsterdam, please make sure, and if you're more curious about Matias Stegmann's work, please go and check out and put everything into the show notes. Also his link on Instagram, also his website. It's really worth a visit. I mean, Matias is not just a wonderful, beautiful soul and human being and great friend. No, he's doing incredible work and he can help you on your healing journey. So please make sure you're going to see Matias and check out in the show notes where you can find him. And I'm going to say thank you for today. Thank you from Amsterdam. Thank you, Matias.
Thank you, Caroline.
And I'll see you in the next episode of Real, Raw, and Authentic. And until then, please take good care of yourself.